When people like talk about the runes, I feel like they're often comparing it to the Latin alphabet and the Greek alphabet. So, or A B C D E F G H I J K L P Q R S T U V W X Y and Z. But this is actually, you can't really compare it. I mean, uh, especially in the modern day where you have like capital and lowercase letters, which really weren't around back then. So let's say this is our current Latin alphabet, and we want to say first of all, um, a lot of these letters just didn't exist in like the original script. So mainly G used to be written the same as the letter C. So whether it was a G sound or a K sound, you just had to know by context. And I believe the reason is because Etruscan. Let's see. Right here. I don't like it. Didn't have a G sound, so it used this for K and this for K. And I hope I'm not very good at it. Seems to have had an aspiration, unaspirated distinction, but no voicing distinction. So this letter ka, which is from the Greek gamma, gets used for both. So we no G there. No J either. J was originally a long I, so like E as opposed to I, just to show that it's longer, but eventually got repurposed to the consonant ya or ja or ja, depending on the language. In Spanish, it's like a sound, but usually I think most of the time it comes from Latin ya. Let's see. Then the letter V and the letter W used to also be the same letter. Some letters can have like variants depending on like where in the word it is. So you might be familiar with like the long S. Um, I don't know if I have a keyboard with that. So long S is a similar example where in certain parts of the word you would get a long S, and in other parts you would get round S. And eventually people just stopped using the long S in I think every language. But originally U and V were the same letter, so we can get rid of that. W, unsurprisingly, used to be just two U's together, so we can get rid of that. It was used for the W sound after original W had become V in Latin. Y and U are actually the same letter. Originally, they both come from the Greek upsilon, so we can get rid of this one too. Um, and here we have something a lot more similar to the runes, the Futhark. But another change we have to make is, of course, there's no lowercase runes. So we get something like this. And of course, these are, the Latin. So, like, the Latin alphabet basically looked like that at the time that the Romans were using it in ancient times. But we have something, an even older form, which, let's see, I believe Hikklmn. So I should be able to write all of these. And well, what I just said is inaccurate because they did have U and they did have the G, later on. But if we're just talking about like the earliest, like the old, um, like archaic Latin, maybe you'd say the alphabet looks something more like this, and you can see basically for all of them, um, just get rid of this or that, and you get the Latin letter. And already this is looking a lot more, um, like the Futhark, the runes. Um, if I get my runic keyboard, and I think it might be Old English, so it might not. This looks correct. A B then K. This K rune looks a lot like that. Um, this D rune is interesting. So this makes the duh sound. Um, but it looks a lot like this, the Pontic character. This, I don't know how it's pronounced, maybe ta or sha or something. It should also appear here. Where Pontic is. Um, looks like they have a different character there. But it also looks a lot like this. So where exactly that duh came from, I don't know. But something like that. I-K. Oh. Um, well, I, it just has, well, I shouldn't say that it only has one letter for, because there are different, like, um, different way, like in the younger Futhark um, and Anglo-Saxon runes, I believe they have different runes, but this is the older Futhark one, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so skip that. L, it's just that, but upside down. Let's see what the Pontic does. It has it more looking like a J. Back then, it was like more common for letters to be written in reverse. M, very similar. N, very similar. Let's see what N looks like at Pontic. Like that. So it's sort of backwards. Are there any of these that sort of look similar to oh, Austin here? That's very similar to the N, I would say. It just has like two of these bars. Um, and O, if you look at the Lepontic O, you can see it looks the same. P, Hertra. To me, this looks a lot like a pie turned on its side. So if we go to Western Greek and you see the pie, you just turn that on its side, and that's what you get. But maybe it was originally like this and looked more like this pie, and then they just added one at the bottom for symmetry or something. I don't know. Maybe just to distinguish it from the other letters. Um, there's no Q that I'm aware of. So we go to R, and you actually see that it looks more similar to the Latin script R than to the Italic R. And let's see what R is in the Pontic. It's like a backwards D by the looks of things. What about this? What does it say? I sort of that like forwards P now. But what about Etruscan R? What's that? And sort of that backwards P. But so either it underwent a similar development as Latin, or that was like some older development or something that was shared. Let's see, R, S. Now it's very similar to this with just an extra downstroke, and you might also notice if you're familiar with the Greek, that it's basically the same as this. So that could be even a more archaic form. And if we look at the Pontic one, we see this one with extra lines, um, which isn't surprising. If you saw this in like a runic inscription, I think that would just be normal. This is another variant of the S rune. Even in runes, you can see an S that looks more like this, except I think it's more like this. Um, let's see, next one we have is T, which I think looks very similar to T. Um, in the Gothic scripts, it's distinguished, so you have one that looks like this and one that looks like this, and this one is 900, and this one is the letter for T, and also, I believe, 300. Let's see. But you'll notice that they seem to be designed to be good for carving, and it's easier to carve things, I suppose, if it's at an angle rather than being horizontal. That could be a reason, why you might turn pi on its side. Um, because otherwise, I let's see. So let's say if you have tried to draw this without any horizontal lines, obviously that's going to cause problems. But um, if you do this, that's the same as same as the one for E. Where's E? I made a mistake there, didn't I? E. It looks like an M as well. So maybe they were like, okay, well, if we imagine it as this, which those letters were always going to turn on their side, um, then it's easy to draw. Crap. Um, T and then U doesn't look particular like this, but as you can see, some of them, here this one looks like a V, um, so you just have to turn that on its side. Um, Here, this Etruscan one also looks like a V. This Oscan one looks like a V. This Pontic, well, I already looked at the Pontic. And South Piscine looks like a V. So you really just have to turn it on its side, um, like just upside down. And then we have this, um, oh, what did I do? I don't know. Why aren't you working? Hello? Oh, I think it just isn't a letter in the font or something. So I have this G, which looks a lot like this X. And if you look at it, you can see there are also letters that look like X. And see, what did they? Not all of them like distinguish K from G. A lot of them use this for G. So assuming that, let's say, you're borrowing from some script that doesn't have a letter for G, but uses this one for K, then you might consider taking one of the other ones. Let's see if this X appears in Pontic. It does. Maybe it makes the X sound, and you're just like, okay, well, I'll pronounce that. I'll use that for my G. And let's see. Then we have this Z-looking one. Or, I mean, it's pronounced as a Z. It doesn't look like a one. It doesn't look like a Z. I mean. And that is very similar to this P one, or this K one. Um, I don't think it's, overall like that difficult to derive it from like one of these. Um, and you can see, Goth. I mean, the runes have their own like word order. I mean, letter order in the alphabet. and some of them don't really look like any of. Well, I mean, for example, this you have the Futhark. This is makes a th sound. Um, Maybe it derives from this p or something with just this part on the left lost, and you get a th. I don't know. You also have somewhere you have a w. I don't know where it is. Should be somewhere. Here it is. So where do you get this w? Well, um, to me it looks a lot like this one, but instead of being like this, it just closes it. So maybe what you might have seen happen is maybe one script uses that letter for the f sound and it looks like an F, and another, uses it for w sound and maybe it looks more like this. And maybe they just, adapted the same character, like similar to what happened with U and Y, where you just get the borrow the same letter twice. Um, it's possible. So the runic, uh, the early Germanic people who like adopted the runic alphabet, they probably were in contact with multiple alphabets just like this. Lepontic being one of the closest ones, but there could have been some other script that we just aren't aware of that was even closer to the runes. And I I don't think the runes are really that much of a mystery. Obviously, we can't know exactly where they came from, but I don't think it's like I wouldn't say it's like a mystery of where they came from. Like, oh wow, isn't it crazy that they have this like weird, unique script? Because it's like if you look at all these other scripts, it's not really that strange. I mean, these scripts are for like, well, Etruscan is an Indo-European. I don't think it's some other, pre-Indo-European language. Um, but a lot of these, I think, are for Italic or Celtic languages. Greek is Hellenic. Um, and those languages at that time, they didn't have the same sounds as Germanic does because they didn't undergo Grimm's law. So, I mean, the script, like the runes are a bit different because they have a few more like sounds that they need to represent somehow. But overall, I don't think it's really that much of a mystery. I think maybe it was borrowed directly from Western Greek or some other Greek alphabet. I don't find that particularly likely. It could be that they borrowed a letter from Western Greek or two. Um, it's it's not impossible that they would still have contact with them. But it could be that the alphabet was like, maybe they took some letters from an Italic alphabet and they took another one from uh, a Celtic language, Celtic alphabet, um, something like that. Uh, these scripts diverge enough from each other that I don't really see it as like some weird hard thing to explain that Futhark doesn't like the runes don't match any one of them in particular.